much for that introduction, but gee, somebody coming from Texas, I should just let them speak. Hi everyone, my name is Pam and I'm a recovered alcoholic. I say that I'm a recovered alcoholic not to offend anybody or cause controversy, but in my literature it says that we are to introduce ourselves as a recovered alcoholic. I'm not the same person that I was when I first came into the rooms. So let me just tell you a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in New Jersey. Please don't hold that against me. I have, both my parents are still living. My father's a retired Navy SEAL. So growing up in my house, it was very structured. You know, you do as I say, you know, and what stays in our home stays in our home. But on the outside, you know, looking in, we looked like we were the perfect family. I went to Catholic school for the first 8 years, and then my parents decided to put me in a public school thinking that would be the best thing for me. But that really wasn't the case. It was because even at a young age, I was a little troublemaker. So the Catholic high school really didn't want me. I picked up my first drink when I was 13 years old. I had ran away from home, and I ran to a town called Paterson, New Jersey. It's not a good fun town for a person to be. I heard downtown Fayetteville was a lot like Paterson, New Jersey, so if that helps you any. So I picked up, you know, I was always one to try and hang out with the older crowd, in which I did. And somebody handed me a bottle of Southern Comfort. Well, I downed it like you would down a bottle of sweet tea. You know, I just downed it. I didn't like the taste of it, but I sure liked the way it made me feel. I'm a blackout drinker. I did black out that day, and I woke up in a limousine. I don't really remember how I got there, but I did, and proceeded to get sick all over the limousine. They didn't like that too much, and I got kicked out of that limo real quick. So I went to the runaway home in Paterson, New Jersey, and they proceeded to call the police in my hometown in West Milford. And by doing that, you know, the police came and they got me. And that was the beginning of me with alcohol, with me with the police department, and so it began. But that, as soon as I taste that alcohol, although I didn't like it, I chased it for the next 37 years. I mean, I really chased it. I've had some in and outs with the police department. No matter where I moved to, they knew exactly who I was. But I was being in public high school, I got to see a lot of things. You know, I was called a part-time jock and a part-time head. So I spent a lot of time out in the smoking lounge. I mean, back then you were able to go out in the smoking lounge. But being this is Alcoholics Anonymous, I'll keep the dry goods out of it. But there is a lot in my story. Being that I found alcohol in high school, you know, I used to be an avid softball player. I had a scholarship to Penn State. That kind of went out the window because, you know, I was too busy drinking. You know, that started to become a priority. And this was the beginning of me starting not finishing things. You know, I didn't finish high school. I didn't care about the softball team. You know, I used to fence, you know, with the sword thing. So I used to fence, and, you know, that didn't become like a matter to me anymore. You know, it was all about the starting to beginning of alcohol, you know. I was like the weekend warrior. You know, when I was able to find alcohol, I would drink it, but that was kind of easy because I did hang out with the older crowd. So alcohol never seemed to be a problem for me. The alcohol in my parents' house, I learned really quick how to pour like water into the bottles to make it look fuller. I never really saw eye to eye with my parents, you know, being that my father was a structured Navy man. You know, so to me, rules were always meant to be broken, and I tried every rule to break. Being the good little alcoholic that I was, you know, my parents in the long run wound up moving and not telling me where they moved to. They just couldn't handle it anymore, you know. I have 3 children, and God bless all of them, that I didn't drink when I was pregnant with them. But soon as they were born, with all 3 of them, it was right back for the drawing boards to me. You know, I couldn't wait to get to that bottle. You know, I had 9 months to make up for. And it was amazing. I was doing a 5th step with a sponsee, and she talked about losing a child. And during that, hearing them do that 5th step, it reminded me, you know, in between my first child and my second child, I was pregnant in my tubes, and I had to have a child taken from me. I didn't recall that until the 5th step. So I was listening to somebody else's 5th step. So it's really amazing how this program works, that, you know, God doesn't give you more than you can handle. And I guess I couldn't handle it at the time because I had blocked it for so many years. I have moved geographically, trying to think that would solve my problems. But no matter what town I was in or what state I was in, I was always stuck with me in the police department. So I didn't like beer. I didn't like wine. I didn't like champagne. You know, liquor was quicker, so liquor was for me. So things, you know, with moving up and down the coast, you know, I would find hostages along the way. You know, I'd find, you know, the guys that would, you know, who were the toughest and the baddest of the ones before that I had dated previously. And, you know, it didn't really work because, well, it wasn't that it didn't work. You know, they always point the finger at me. And, you know, of course, when I'm pointing at somebody, I got 3 pointed back at me. And I just didn't want to hear that. You know, I didn't want to believe it. You know, I always played the victim card. And, you know, it wasn't until I came into this program that I learned otherwise. So I became the single mom quite often in most of my life. You know, I was the single mom. And I thought I was the greatest mom in the world. You know, when you go to make that amends to your children, you know, you learn otherwise. But I'll tell you more about that. I had gotten, when I was high school, when I was in high school, I decided I was dating this guy, and for fun, we decided to, you know, we got all drunk and stuff, and decided to steal my mother's car. Wound up in Pennsylvania. I woke up out of a blackout, coming through the windshield of the car. We were running around, and, you know, it's like the SWAT team was out or something. But here I thought it was raining, and I wiped my face, and it was my blood. And then I was like, okay, I quit. So I had, I was extradited from Pennsylvania to New Jersey through Newark Airport, handcuffed and shackled. And that's when I thought I had arrived. You know, being in high school and having that over your head, you know, people began to be afraid of you, and, you know, it seemed like crowd shift changed. You know, I was more accepted because, you know, I had gotten in trouble with the law. I had gotten probation, but I had also got, before they had ankle bracelets, I had gotten home arrest, and we lived on a horse farm, so I had acres and acres to go hang out on. But the day that I got off home arrest, I went out, I found a party, I got picked up hitchhiking, and it's, you know, true what they say, don't get in cars with people you don't know, because that's where I met my first husband. Wrong thing to do. So anyway, meeting him, and, you know, I thought he was the greatest. And I stayed out all night and went home the next morning. And my father, who was, you know, I was very much afraid of, you know, started going absolutely crazy because, you know, I didn't come home all night. And my then boyfriend, first husband, whatever, stood up for me. So I was instantly in love. because he stood up to my dad. Nobody stood up to my dad. So that's how that relationship started and ended. It crashed. Being that I moved up and down the coast, I had learned a lot of things, and along the way, I learned how to be more of the victim, how to control other people. I also learned how to steal, how to become a better liar, how to manipulate people, and not stuff that I'm very proud of. At that time I had two little kids, and I became a really good thief, and I was really good at it, but I had to support my family in a sense. And at once, when I was with my first husband, we were considered the Bonnie and Clyde of New Jersey. I'm not proud of this fact, but it's part of my story. This is where alcohol was bringing me, or had brought me, and I'm not too proud of that. Growing up further into alcoholism, I didn't like myself. While I was drinking, I couldn't actually remember a time where I actually liked who I was. I pretty much hated myself the entire time that I drank, and I think the reason I drank, I'm not a scientist or a doctor or anything, but, going through my fourth and fifth step, I kind of learned that I didn't like myself from a very early age, and, that was okay, and I knew I was different, but I just couldn't know why. I would go to different churches, trying to find that religion, reading self-help books, thinking, that's going to solve my problem, and, nothing ever solved my problem. I had mentioned that I went to Catholic school. My Catholic school priest died on 9/11. I can say his name. His name is Father Michael Judge. He was the fire chaplain of New York. That's kind of where I lost all my sense of God. I just couldn't imagine, that whole time up there in New York. But to honestly, for him to be doing last rites and him passing away, I just didn't see the justice in that at all, and I was very much angry with God. So I had a major resentment with God. Before that, I was working as a custodian. I made pretty decent money for a custodian. I was able to drink on the job because it was at night. I didn't have a supervisor. So, I would have friends, I would have to do security around the building. So I would have people do drop-offs for me around the building. There was always a bottle, you hit the corner and there was a bottle of this. You hit the next corner, there was a bottle of that. You come around the corner where there's no cameras, and there'd be people in their car, and I would hang out and I would party in the car. These are the crazy things I did. I got hurt on the job, and I broke my back. So it took me out of work. By now, my 3 children are getting older. My youngest son was still, kind of little. He might have been 6 or 7. And my daughter had gone off to college, and she had gotten married, and I did not like the son-in-law. What they talk about in the big book about the Jekyll and Hyde. That's who I am when I drank. One minute I'm nice, the next thing I want to rip somebody's head off, and there was no rhyme or reason to it. It's just the way I was. And my daughter asked me to come out to visit her and my new son-in-law for Easter out in, I call it Misery, but it was out in Missouri. So I went out to him, and it was a 5-hour, I had drank all the way on the plane for the plane ride, and I get to Missouri. Sorry, it's embedded in my head. It's Missouri. And I get there, and I get to the door, and my daughter is white as a ghost. She tells me at the door that she's pregnant. She's lost 30 pounds in the first 3 months of her pregnancy. And I turned around and looked at my son-in-law, and no matter what he said to me, he was lying to me. no matter what. And I proceeded to beat the living crap out of him, and I had him on the ground, and I was choking this boy, and he was turning blue. My kids didn't stop me because they're like, oh, there goes mom, she's going on another tangent again. You know, this is what they were used to with me. And all they could say to him was, that's what you get for lying to my mother, you should know better. And God stepped in that day because something made me let go of this boy. And I proceeded to tell him that I was taking my daughter, I could better take care of her, and she's getting on the plane with me, and she's coming home back home with me. And he couldn't say anything, And I kind of thought at the time, like, boy, this kid's a wimp. No, it's not what it was. It's because he respected me, and respect in a way that he wouldn't hit a woman. I wasn't used to that. I grew up being a tomboy, and we'd go punch for punch, and it just never dawned on me. That was the reason why. Now I got my daughter home with me, and she's pregnant. I'm out on workman's comp. I had to take medication for pain, and it's true what they say on that bottle. Alcohol does intensify the effect, because I was looped. And, I didn't care. I didn't care about my kids. My daughter became the mom. I became the child. And I'm not proud of this. I did a lot of things to make sure that our family was okay. A lot of illegal activities that I'm not too proud of. And thank God I didn't get caught. Sooner or later, I allowed my son-in-law to come and live with us. And I used to bring friends in saying, watch this is funny. And I would walk into the room, and he would walk out of the room, my son-in-law. I'd leave the room, come right back in, he'd walk back in, and he'd walk back out. And I used to think that was really funny. This poor kid, he had no chance. It was very sad. So my daughter had my granddaughter October 14th, 2005. I really don't remember much of it. I was pretty wasted. By now, alcohol was my master. I had no control over it. I didn't care about anything or anyone. Alcohol was my master. So at the hospital, what I can remember was, the nurses asking me, do you want to hold your granddaughter? And I'm like, no, I don't. And then I can hear the nurses, or what I can remember is I can remember the nurses talking about me. What kind of grandmother is she? She doesn't even want to hold her daughter, her granddaughter. What kind of grandma is she going to be? Well, that just set me right on fire again, and God stepped in again that day, because I didn't kill anybody that day. I left. I got out of the hospital, and I called every friend that I know. And I said, hey, I'm a grandma. Come to my house. I'm having a party. And I was pretty known for my parties up north. And I had 30 people come stay at my house for a week straight. Most normal people were like, shh, quiet, the baby's here. There's a baby in the house. And I'm like, woo, let's party. I didn't care. I had no thought of my granddaughter. I had no thought of my children. All I thought about was me and my good time. And my youngest son was like, Mommy, can I go to grandma's, grandma's house? Can I go to the farm, please? And I was like, sure. He's gone. There's one gone. But, I could see the disgust in my kids' faces. My daughter's face and my son-in-law. My oldest son, I'm not proud of this fact, but I taught him how to party. I taught him how to drink and, use other substances. And so he was like highlighting it. I wasn't, most kids have like the Kool-Aid mom. Well, I was the Kool-Aid mom, with Jello shots and stuff. So, but my youngest son decided he wanted to go to his grandmother's house. And I went to the grandmother's house. and there was somebody I hadn't seen for a very long time. And he had a brand new Dodge truck. I can remember the Dodge truck. And, he had said, haven't you had enough? Aren't you done? I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm trying to invite him to this party that I have going on at my house. And, other people had tried to tell me, I think you need some help. And I would never listen. And I would, have this big chip on my shoulder. If you live my life, you would do this, this, and this. Well, no. So anyway, the gentleman started talking to me. This is somebody I used to party with a lot. And he started talking to me about one day at a time. He started talking to me about Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm like, you know what? Alcoholics Anonymous doesn't work. Half those people are at my house drinking right now. So I don't know what you're talking about. And he tried to explain things to me, and I just wasn't ready to actually hear it. And I kind of blew him off, and he was like, haven't you realized you haven't seen me in 10 years? No. Because when you're out there and you're drinking, people come in and out of your lives. And there's always somebody else to drink with. And that's kind of how I looked at it. So meanwhile, I still have this party going on. And so I go back to my house. And before I can even get the doorknob turned to my front door, another friend rolls up and she's like, hey, what are you doing? I was like, I'm having a party at my house. You want to come in? She goes, how about you take a ride with me? I said, where are we going? She says, Alcoholics Anonymous. So I'm like, So of course in my mind I'm asking, well, is there any cute guys? She's like, sure there is. I would go anywhere if you told me there was a cute guy. I was there. So off we go. This is October 19th, 2005. So I go to this meeting. I walked in, and there was the most oldest looking fellows I had ever seen in my life. And I looked at her, and I was like, I don't know what made me sit there that day during that meeting. And I really don't remember much what was really said, but I kind of identified with stuff. But I could never admit, I'm not an alcoholic. To me, the alcoholic was that Bowery bum. The dude that was paper bagging it and urinating on himself. I was still functional. I thought I was functional. I still had my house. I still had my kids. I had my car, and that's how I kind of looked at it. So after the meeting, nobody really spoke to me. I guess I kind of looked kind of crazed. And afterwards, my friend says, so you want to go to the bar? And I'm like, aren't you one of these AA people? And she's like, I only have to get my paper signed. I'm like, oh, okay. I could have very well said yes to go to the bar that night, but instead, like I said, I still have this party going on in my house with 30 people in it. So I said, no, come on back to my house. And we get back to my house, and I drank everything under the sun, plus other things, and the alcohol stopped working for me that night. And when it stopped working, I started feeling. And I don't know if anybody's ever seen Pink Floyd The Wall, where the guy starts throwing furniture and everything. Well, that's exactly what I did. I threw a chair right in through the TV and broke the television. I just destroyed everything. So if you ever want to get 30 people out of your house real quick, just throw a chair. They'll leave. But with that, my children left too, and my granddaughter. The kids just couldn't handle it anymore. They just couldn't deal with me anymore. I was that, like it speaks about in the big book, about that tornado, wrecking through people's lives. That was me. So now I'm like, I can't, I was thinking about suicide. Because by now I figured, my kids were better off without me. They don't need me. And I just couldn't figure out the way to make it look like an accident so my kids will still benefit from it. I remember walking into the bathroom and looking in the mirror, and I couldn't recognize myself. I just couldn't do it. I just didn't see who I was anymore. And then I walked into the bedroom, and there was a picture of God on the wall. That was my grandmother. She was very religious. And I just cried out to God, please kill me. Just take me. Just do anything with me. Either kill me or help me, because I can't go on like this any longer. And I slept. For some reason, I fell asleep, which that was a rare thing, because I didn't sleep. I got up the next morning. The first thing I wanted to do was fight, because my house was trashed. And then I had to come to realize, like, I'm the one that trashed the house. And then lo and behold, on the kitchen table, amongst the beer bottles and the beer cups from playing beer pong, that's it, was a meeting list from Alcoholics Anonymous. And I don't even remember picking one up. So it's just kind of interesting. I'm sure somebody handed it to me. But anyway, October 20th, 2005, I walked into the rooms of AA. I was scared, just about as scared as I am right now. I'm really nervous. I was scared. I couldn't understand what you guys were all laughing about, because I could see inside, and people were laughing and smiling and having a good time, and they had that glow about them. It's a certain glow that we have, and somebody physically pushed me through the door. I still not sure who it was. I have an idea though. But they told me to sit down. They told me they knew how I felt, and I'm like, I still have this major chip on my shoulder. I'm like, how do you know what I feel? And the women went around and wrote their names on a meeting list for me, and then after the meeting was over, they bombarded me. And I'm like, oh man. I didn't know how to deal with women. I'm a tomboy. It's probably why your weather is like this, is because I'm in a dress. So I couldn't relate to women. I drank with the men, I drank with the boys, and I just kind of figured women were like little teetotalers, and I just didn't trust women, period. I figured you were just as shiesty as I was, so I wasn't going to trust you. But the women were telling me how to stay sober was go take a bubble bath, go buy yourself something nice, go get your nails done, go get your hair done. And I'm looking at them like, I'm going to kill you. I don't want to go to the mall. I don't want to go shopping. I don't want to, I lived on a farm. This is all, how is this going to make me stay sober? But they told me, to get a sponsor, to pick somebody that I'd wanted what they had. And I could hear this man in the back of the room, and he talked about being recovered. He talked about the steps. He talked about our big book. And, there was something about this man, Also, he had a really gorgeous wave in his hair like my grandmother, so that might have just had something to do with it, but I'm not sure. So anyway, I asked him to go. I went up to him against all the women to be my sponsor. And I asked him, would you be my sponsor? And he asked me, well, are you willing to go to any length? And I had buts. I'm like, but, no. And he'd ask me again. I said, no, but. So, after ringing around the rosy, I said, look, I'm not sleeping with you. I just want to be sober. He's like, I'm not asking you to. So, after that, he says, can you read? I said, well, of course I can read. I went to New Jersey schools, not New York. I got sober in New York. So, not knowing this poor man did not know how to read. I'm already making points. He says, go get the big book. Go get that big book over there and open up to page 112. So I opened up the book, and on the top of page 112, it says, read this book. I said, oh. He asked me again, are you willing to go to any lengths for your sobriety? And I said, yes. Yes, I am. He goes, good. Go home and read the book and then call me. So I read the book, all excited. I call him. I'm like, I read the book. And he's like, are you ready to do the work? Because this program is all about action and more action. And I said, yes. So we didn't delay. We went by what the literature says, and I went through the steps within 30 days of my sobriety. And by doing so, I had that psychic change. With the first step, I knew my life was unmanageable. I knew I was a mess. The second step, I had a problem, the whole God thing. Like I mentioned earlier, he had taken my Catholic school priest, and I just didn't understand 9/11. And so he kept asking me, do I believe in God? And I said, yeah. I said, but I'm really mad at him. And he's like, okay, we can work on that. But when we got to the third step, and I got on my knees, and I said that third step prayer, I felt relief. I felt like a calmness. But the calmness didn't last too long. And I went right into my fourth step, and not right away, because I kind of dragged my feet on it. I didn't know how to be honest. I didn't know how to be truthful. I didn't know how to do any of it. Excuse me. But I invited God in, and I began to write. And when I was finished, I was done. And I didn't like who I saw on that paper, but it was me. It was my causes and my effects of where I did things. And then I had to trust another human being in my fifth step. So I told my sponsor everything. If we were to be honest about this step, and I get asked all the time, well, how did you tell a man about your sexual misconducts? I said, well, it's all about honesty, and I wanted so desperately what everybody else had that I was willing to go to any length to do so. So by doing my fifth step with my sponsor at the time, I learned I wasn't unique. Everything that I thought I was going to take to my grave, I let go of. Because he told me, you're only as sick as your secrets. And I didn't want to be sick anymore. So after I did my fifth step, it says in our literature to focus for 1 hour. Take the book off the shelf. And think back about the first 5 proposals. And if you didn't forget anything, go on to step 7. I got on my knees and I said the 7-step prayer, and I began to cry. And I went right away to make my amends to my children. And by doing that, they in turn told me things about stuff that I had done that I don't remember, and still to this day do not remember. But I must have did it because, their stories still coincide with one another. I told you about my parents moving and not telling me where they moved to. I now know where they live. I am welcomed in their home. I know the phone number. But that amends didn't go so well at first, because how many times did they hear me say, I'm sorry and I'll never do this again? They just didn't want to hear it this time. I had to prove it. Like it's saying with time, things I must earn. I had to earn that. I had to make other amends with other families and other friends, and with places that, that I had robbed, and, there's creditors that I'm still making payments on, and, the whole thing about making an amends is to still be willing, and I'm willing whenever God sees fit to put these people in my life. I'll be ready to make that amends. It's just being willing. And 10, 11, and 12 are my maintenance steps. They're also my growing steps. Today I can say that I'm sorry and actually mean it. It's not, I'm sorry, now give me what I want, When I make mistakes, I'm human. I do make mistakes, and, I can say I'm sorry. I used to didn't want to say I was sorry when I was sober, but I would get this feeling in the pit of my stomach, and it was very unsettling. And, that was God talking to me. I think, you have to do this. Steps 11 and 12, prayer and meditation is a big part of my life today. At first I couldn't get quiet. I couldn't sit still. But now I can. I can sit quiet. And sometimes I don't get the answers I would like, but it's the answers that I need. And I've learned that. And step 12 is having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. I'm not that same person I was when I first walked into these rooms in 2005. I'm not that animal. I'm a responsible person today. I'm compassionate. I'm a mom, I'm an aunt, I'm a daughter. I'm a grandmother to 2 beautiful grandchildren. That son-in-law that I tried to kill is a big part of my life today. We're on really excellent terms. Because when I moved down here almost a year ago, he allowed me to come into his home. He's in Afghanistan right now. He comes home in November. My grandchildren, I just had my granddaughter for this past week, and if I wasn't sober, I wouldn't have that blessing. I have many blessings in this program. When I used to go on vacation, I used to think of where's a good place to go drink. Now I'm like, well, where's a good place to go while you're sober? I've been to Vermont to see Bill's house. I got to actually speak up in Vermont, which is an awesome thing. I've been to Akron, Ohio to be at Dr. Bob's house, and what a spiritual place. It's just you walk up and there's 12 steps, and you get to the door and there's somebody just says welcome. I try to carry this message as best I can. If somebody asks me to do something, I'll never say no. Because I was told that, when I first got here, if somebody asks you to do service, you never say no. In order to keep what I have to freely give it away. So I appreciate this opportunity for allowing me to speak in this group. I don't get a chance to do it as often as I would like to. I have a lot of gratitude. I have a lot of gratitude for this program. AA has brought me, I always say it, a bunch of drunks brought me back to God, and God brought me to AA. And with that, that's all I have. Thanks.